Hello, boys, girls, and everything in between. My name is Comrade Q, here for some more anarchist propaganda. Today, I'll be reacting to this YouTuber called Redeemed Zoomer, who made a video called "All Atheists' Arguments Are Answered in 10 Minutes." So, firstly, I am agnostic, but I am leaning towards God not existing. Um, so I guess let's begin this.
Atheists have a lot of arguments, but they never really think of anything new that the church hasn't had answers to for the past 2,000 years. So let's answer them. Religion causes wars. Well, actually, only
Well, yes, it does.
7% of all human wars were caused by religion. And if
All right then, let's test that. Okay, so that is correct. Um. So yeah, I guess it is correct. However, 7% of wars is still quite a lot. Like, if every almost so if you're because you're simply arguing over what Sky Daddy believes, so it's still pretty much just it still doesn't make sense why people are disagreeing and how it has caused to wars such as the Crusades. But I guess he is correct about that.
if you remove Islamic wars, that number drops down to 3%.
Why does that change anything?
A lot of evil has been done in the name of religion. This is true, but the most murderous people in human history have been atheists.
Hitler used religious rhetoric, and Stalin basically made himself a god. So while they were atheists, they use the same. They use very similar rhetoric.
This doesn't mean religion is
And and how if you're going most of the most a lot of fascists also use a religion as a means to defend their beliefs.
true, it just means you can't use that as an argument against it. If you were born somewhere else, you wouldn't be a Christian. Okay.
Exactly. Okay.
And if you were born somewhere else, you wouldn't be an atheist. Everyone's beliefs are shaped by their context. How do you know which religion?
Okay, so if since since everywhere has different beliefs, why did God only reveal himself to people in certain areas and in certain regions and countries? What's better about those countries that they shouldn't be spared from damnation?
Is true. Well, everyone, religious or not, has faith in a certain worldview. It's just that some worldviews are called religions and some are secular. But everyone has to ask the question of which worldview best explains the world. There's no scientific proof.
Well, sure, but Sky Daddy isn't really the best way of deciding that's how everything works.
That God exists. Well, by definition, science can only prove things inside the natural world, and by definition, God is something outside the natural world. So science can neither prove nor disprove God. There's no evidence of
Well, yeah, neither can a big book.
Anything supernatural. Well, that's just not accurate. There are medically documented cases of people with demonic possession speaking in languages they don't know, for example, and people with near-death experiences getting information they never had access to. The Bible has contradictions. Okay, you think you found an apparent contradiction that the church hasn't known about for 2,000 years? Every apparent contradiction can be explained by understanding just a little bit of theology. The
Okay, so so an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth is how law should work, and um, and turn the other cheek is how individual philosophy should work. Why? What's better about laws that they get to punish people? Why can't I punish people?
Gospels were anonymous. Okay, anonymous doesn't mean we have no idea who wrote them. It just means the names of the authors
Yes, it does.
aren't signed in the text itself. But we literally have writings from church fathers who knew the apostles and can verify that they indeed wrote the books named after them. The Gospels
How does that at all prove or disprove the existence of God?
misquote Jesus. Now, it's true that a lot of secular scholars think the Gospels are a mix of real quotes from the historical Jesus and fake quotes added by the church, but none of them can agree on which quotes are legit and which are not, so we can discard their opinions.
So why isn't God actually why isn't God being clear about the correct thing?
Jesus never claimed to be God. Yes, he did. He didn't say, I am God, worship me, but he showed that he was God in many places in all four Gospels by doing things that only God can do. It's true that he didn't walk around before his resurrection claiming to be God, because he wanted people to figure it out themselves. That's why he kept saying, Who do you say that I am? However, after his resurrection, people figured out that he was God, and Jesus congratulated them. The later one of the Gospels was written, the more divine it made.
Like Jesus, but we have no way of knowing whether the Bible is fiction or not, and since practically no one can walk on water unless they freeze it first, um, and and there and God has never revealed himself. It's probably fiction.
Makes Jesus seem, so we can extrapolate that Jesus was originally a human figure who got made more divine over time. Alright, maybe some Gospels emphasize Jesus' divinity more than others, but what about Paul's letters that fully confess the divinity of Jesus and were also written before any of the Gospels? So that breaks your pattern. The Bible supports slavery. No, it doesn't. Just because there's slavery in the Bible doesn't mean the Bible
The church tried to justify slavery by saying that black people were less human.
supports it. There are some Old Testament verses that could be interpreted as condoning slavery, but Jesus himself said that the Old Testament made accommodations to people's sinful state. And also, slave owners in the American South had slave Bibles for their slaves to read, but it omitted a lot of the real Bible, so if the Bible actually did support slavery, this wouldn't have been necessary. Christianity supported slavery. Well, sure, some Christians did, but all human civilizations have had slavery. Christian civilization was the first one to
That changes that. The fact that every society has had slavery changes nothing about how good those societies were. And once again, the church tried to justify slavery by saying that the slaves were less human.
abolish it on moral grounds. The fact that you're against slavery is due to Christian influence. Also, most organizations fighting modern day slavery are Christian. God killed tons of people in the Bible. Well, it's actually way more than that. God numbers everyone's days. He's the giver of life, so he can take it.
Okay, God killed innocent people early, though, too. In the Passover, which was in the Passover, like in the Old Testament, God killed every firstborn child that wasn't one of the slaves in Egypt. Obviously, that does contradict how God how Christians did support slavery, but like but Christians seem to just love taking what they prefer from the Bible and then leaving the rest.
Especially if people sin.
Hey, guess what? I just got my free Love Honey toy, and so can you. Just click on the link, enter your email address.
Atheist countries are more prosperous. Yes, it's true that Northern European countries are very prosperous and very secular, but correlation doesn't equal causation. It's not like atheism causes prosperity, it's that prosperity causes atheism because when people have comfortable lives, they don't feel a need to depend on God. But why are these particular countries so prosperous in the first place? They may be secular now, but they're rooted in generations and generations of Protestant Christians.
So is every single country.
Christianity. If you want an example of a country that's atheist and not rooted in Christianity, look at communist China. There's 4,000 gods that people believe in, and you're atheist to 3,999 of them. I just go one god further. Okay, this isn't the gotcha that you think it is, because the question of whether some sort of god exists is fundamentally different from the question of which religion is right about God. If God created everything, then who created God? Well, God is defined as the uncaused causer. Everyone knows there.
Yes, but okay, fair, that argument is a bit stupid.
Needs to be a first cause at the beginning of the chain of all events in the universe, and it makes
Which was the Big Bang.
a lot more sense for that first cause to be a personal God who caused things for a reason.
Like the Big Bang is what before the Big Bang there was there wasn't even time, which is quite hard to grasp. But I'm not a scientist, so if you want to ask someone, I'll just ask like a scientist. And like the and and if everything has to have a cause, and like even Christians say that the big say like, oh, what caused the Big Bang? Like, what caused gods? It's the same answer for both. Nothing.
Rather than some random impersonal force. Science disproves God. Well, actually, the church invented modern science. All the founders of the scientific revolution deeply believed in God, and medieval theologians laid the groundwork for modern science by saying the world was governed by an intelligent creator. That means we can understand the world with our intelligence. And studying God led to studying the world because the world is God's creation. God is just used to fill in the gaps of things that science can't explain yet.
Exactly.
Well, actually, God is the reason for everything, even things that science can explain. It's not.
You have no grounds to actually claim that, though.
One or the other. It's not like everything's explained by either science or God, and the more science can explain, the less God can explain. Really, science can explain almost everything, but God is still behind it all, because science explains the
No
how,
basis
and God
to actually
explains
claim
the
that,
why.
it makes no sense.
If God is good, why can't he destroy all evil? Well, he eventually will. Why can't he do it now? Because he'd have to destroy you. Why does God let any bad things happen? Because we
God is all powerful, though. Surely he can remove evil from people without removing the people.
deserve it. Well, animals don't sin, so why do they suffer?
Yeah.
Well, the Bible says all things will be restored, so if God is good, we can assume that they will be compensated.
When?
You know that God isn't evil instead? Well, because evil is not a thing the way good is, just like cold is just.
good is not a substance either. They're both like that. They both lie inside of them of people's minds. It's all an emotional reaction.
A lack of heat, and dark is just a lack of light. Evil is just a lack of good, and for good to be objective, it needs to come from God. So a God who is objectively evil is logical.
Okay, I will say it is quite hard to justify an objective good. Most good and bad are emotional reactions. It has nothing to do with God.
Logically impossible. Can God make a rock he can't lift? Well, you're just asking if God can contradict himself, like can God lie, or can God change, or can God make another God? And the answer to all those things is no. God,
Therefore, he's not all powerful.
being all powerful, means he can do anything to things outside himself.
That's just factually incorrect.
It doesn't mean that he can do anything to himself or that he can contradict himself. Why did God let evil exist at all?
Yeah.
So he could be glorified in defeating it.
What? That just makes him a massive cock!
Triumph over evil is a greater good than evil having just never existed.
No, it's fucking not. How the fuck is triumph over evil better than no evil? Why would you create something bad just so that you can look awesome when you're destroying it? You created that evil in the first place. Like, if I created a deadly virus that kills people in an instant just so that I could make a cure for it, people aren't going to celebrate me for making a cure. They're going to say, why the hell did you deliberately create a virus just so that you could cure it? It makes no sense.
Religion is just wishful thinking. Well, if that were true, then the Bible wouldn't be all about how much we all suck. Psychology explains why you believe in God. So what? If God is real, we should expect there to be some psychological or social benefit to believing in him. Spiritual experiences can be explained by brain chemicals. Well, romantic experiences can also be explained by brain chemicals, but that doesn't mean your wife isn't real.
Well, the emotions are like the emotions are in your own mind, though. Just because your significant other is real doesn't mean that doesn't mean that the emotions don't doesn't mean that the emotions aren't inside, aren't simply brain chemicals, but spiritual experience. And then with spiritual experiences, that is purely inside your own head, which defeats that's evidence for gods.
So spiritual experiences being explained by brain chemicals doesn't mean that God isn't real. Well, drug trips show that spiritual experiences are from the brain.
Exactly.
Well, people who have had both drug trips and near-death experiences say that they're completely different categories of feeling. The story of Jesus was copied from the story of Horus or some other ancient character. Okay, dude, that's a Reddit atheist-level myth. Even atheist scholars know that that's silly. Faith is the opposite of logic and reason. No, it's not. Faith just means trust. Anytime
faith means trust in something that there's not really proof of. At least that's at least that's the definition I tend to use. There are faith often means different things to different people, but faith would usually be trust in something that there's no grounds to really prove using fact.
When you eat food, you're having faith that it's not poisoned, even if you can't scientifically prove it. If you're married, you have faith that your wife loves you, even if you can't scientifically prove that. And if you tried to scientifically prove it, she'd probably get very mad at you because it would mean you didn't trust her. Evolution proves God didn't create the world. Well, not necessarily. God often works through natural processes in the Bible, and for all of church history, there have been
the fact that evolution exists and is very easy to prove, and dismissing the facts of evolution is like the same level as saying the sky's green. actively disproves the idea that God just created, that God just created humans just magically.
Prominent Christian theologians who have had a more metaphorical interpretation of Genesis, even well over 1,000 years before Darwin existed. Christianity only spread because of military conquest.
Exactly.
Well, eventually they did do military conquest, but for the first 300 years of Christianity, it was illegal, and it took over the Roman Empire despite that because of how popular it became.
How's that prove or disprove the existence of God, though?
Constantine invented what we now know of as Christianity. Again, Reddit atheist level myth. Atheists can do better than that. Listen to an actual scholar. If Christianity is true, why are there so many denominations of it? Well, yeah, there are a lot of denominations, but the things they agree on are a lot more significant than the things they disagree on.
Well, surely the truest good, the truest closeness to God which has to match them in every way possible. So
There's no evidence for Jesus outside the Bible. Well, that's not true. There's the ancient Jewish historian Josephus who wrote about Jesus, and he's one of the reasons why even secular scholars know Jesus historically existed. You really think God made billions of galaxies with billions of stars in each of them just to have a personal relationship with you? Yes.
So then you're literally accepting that you're that you're be that you that you're that you believe something with completely no grounds in reason and facts.
How do you create tension? How do you build character?
So that was the video. If you enjoyed, leave a like if you want, and if you don't, then and if you didn't, because you disagreed with what I said, say it in the comments. I'd be happy to debate. And and if you didn't enjoy it because it was boring or meaningless, then why are you on this video, you complete idiot?